Welcome to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. My name is Walter Woods, Coordinator for Outreach and Strategic Initiatives. On the behalf of our 16th President, Dr. Heidi M. Anderson, I bring you greetings and welcome you to our esteemed institution that has been serving our community since our inception on September 13, 1886, with 9 students, 2 instructors, and 1 church house. Our mission has been and continues to be providing educational opportunities to those seeking a chance to improve their station in life through education. We prepare students who will serve and shape the global economy. UMES is a growing, primarily residential university with a mission focused on learning, discovery, and engagement. We engage in numerous collaborative efforts to increase access to and opportunity for a broad spectrum of individuals, organizations, and our students, including the economically and educationally disadvantaged, low-income adult learners, and first-generation learners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning, and we hope that you enjoy your day here at UMES. Come back and visit us sometime. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. I'm Clay Belgi, the president of the Lower Shore Autism Community, and I'm very happy to have Dr. Magro, along with his mother, Sue Magro. We just learned her first name last evening at dinner, and we had been referring to her as Mama Magro, but now she is Sue Magro. And if I heard Mr. Woods correctly, UMES began with 9 students and 2 instructors. And this isn't in my speech, but it reminded me of the Lower Shore Autism Community. Back in probably late 2020, early 2021, we were all dealing with COVID, and my wife Mary Beth and I received an invitation from our founder, Barry Johansson. In fact, Barry, can you stand and be recognized, please? We received an invitation from Barry to join a meeting of the Lower Shore Autism Community. It was held at the Ward Museum in Salisbury, and we got there. Our family has had 2 children who are now adults on the autism spectrum. We got to the Ward Museum, and there may have been 6 or 7 people there. So I'm thinking there's some parallels there between where we are now and where UMES is now. If you had a chance to take a look at our scrolling presentation up on the screens, it's off now in preparation for Kerry's presentation. But since that time, coming out of COVID, small group of people, we've been able to grow to having events such as this. And I'm completely flabbergasted that we were able to get to the point in our growth that we can do things like this. We do have now our monthly family support group meetings for those on the spectrum or those with family members on the spectrum. We have a number of speakers come to those events, but we also have time during those events for those of us who wish to chat with one another, learn from one another, communicate with one another. We also, during the family support group meetings, have in a separate room our teen and young adult social group. We have had probably 6 or 7 of those meetings. We started this past summer. it has really grown as well. As many of us know, one of the issues with young people or anyone on the autism spectrum are social skills. So we have the opportunity to build social skills with the young people who come to that social group every month. Also, we have our annual Family Fun Day in the spring. We have a 5K event. We do a first responders event, our fall festival centered around Halloween, and we also have our holiday brunch every year. We are now a government nonprofit, government recognized nonprofit. So from those early beginnings, we have really grown, and I'm just flabbergasted by what our team was able to do in preparation for today. And leading that team is one of our board members, Trish Shockley. And please. And she has received a great deal of help from Jamie Del Vecchio, who is here, and Dina Avello, who unfortunately can't be with us because she is in Florida at the beach right now. So, we also have in the audience other board members. We have Marianne Doremus. Thank you. We have our treasurer, Steve Fulkrod, employee of the United Way. We have Dr. Lou Kadushin. Another board member that couldn't be with us because she is a professor at SU currently is Yuji Song. Also, we have some volunteers today who are part of our community. We have Seth. Where is Seth? Seth Shockley. We have Toby Doremus. And we have Hannah Carson. They have been a huge help in preparing today's events. And that's really all I have to share. I'm having a hard time speaking. I'm a bit overwhelmed by what has been accomplished today. And I'm constantly amazed that with a small group of board members and some part-time contractual employees who all have autistic family members that we and they are taking care of, I'm just constantly amazed and so grateful that we're able to get this done. And with that, I'd like to call upon Trish Shockley to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this incredible journey that we have today with Kerry. My daughter Bella is 9 years old, and she is on the spectrum. She was diagnosed at 3. My son Seth, who you saw a minute ago, he volunteers with us all the time. He does a lot of stuff with us. I homeschool both of the children, so it gives us a little bit more flexibility to do things, and that is why he is here today helping us. Bella's favorite person in the world is Seth. The bond that the two of them share is the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and I pray to God it never changes. LSEC has been truly blessing for our family and our community because we don't have things like that down on the shore. The support system that we have is something that you can't find everywhere, and it needs to be more for the autism community around the world. We need to have this kind of group and bonding together and understanding more than what we do now. We are truly honored to have Dr. Kerry Magro today. He is an award-winning autistic professional speaker, a best-selling author, autism consultant, and today he will be speaking to us in regards to defining special needs from nonverbal to professional speaker. Dr. Magro aims to provide education and promote understanding about autism awareness and acceptance. In his spare time, he hosts a Facebook page, Kerry's Autism Journey, where he does on-camera interviews to help break down the barriers in the community. If you would all look up at the screens, we're going to have a little intro for Dr. Magro, and then he will proceed.
Guest is an accomplished public speaker and activist who has devoted his life to helping others. Not bad for a guy who was completely nonverbal for the first few years of his life. But once Kerry Magro found his voice, he had a lot to say.
Dr. Kerry Magro is an award-winning professional speaker, best-selling author, and one of the leading advocates for the autism community. He has written 5 books, all of which have reached Amazon's bestseller list, and earned his doctorate in educational technology leadership. Over the past decade, Kerry has dedicated his career to empowering individuals with disabilities, promoting inclusion, and sharing his personal journey from non-speaking autism to becoming a full-time speaker. For his efforts, he's been featured in major media outlets such as The Today Show, CBS News, and The New York Times. In addition to his speaking work, Kerry is the CEO and president of his nonprofit, where he has provided scholarships to autistic students for college. He also started a grant program to help provide financial resources for special education teachers, aides, and therapists to support their classrooms. Kerry has collaborated with global businesses like Google, BlackRock, and American Express to highlight the ROI benefits of autism and neurodiversity in the workplace. He has also partnered with schools, nonprofits, and parent organizations, spreading the message of inclusion far and wide. Beyond his work as a speaker, Kerry, who grew up with a love of theater, has served as an autism entertainment consultant for both TV and film projects to bring a realistic portrayal of autism to the screen. He was the autism consultant for the film The Present, starring Greg Kinnear, and even received a credit in Ezra, starring Robert De Niro. He's also contributed his expertise as a consultant for Netflix's 5-time Emmy award-winning series Love on the Spectrum US. And now, without further ado, Dr. Kerry Magro.
A letter I would have written for my parents when I was still nonverbal. Dear Mom and Dad, I know it's breaking your heart to see me as I am now. Most of the kids we know are starting to talk, while I'm just making sounds. I'm lashing out because I'm struggling. I can't communicate my needs, and things are just not going the way I wish they would. I scream and fight with you every single time you try and bathe me because I can't stand the feeling of water on my skin. I cringe anytime I hear thunder, and I don't like to be touched because of my sensory issues. Even now, as we make all the adorable videos of me dressed up as one of the most best-looking toddlers of all time, I know things aren't easy, and we don't know what my future has in store. But I want to tell you, though, to keep fighting for me and believing in me, because without you both, my best advocates, I'm not going to be the person I am today. There's hope, and you play a huge part in that. Things are going to get better, and without you, that wouldn't be possible. At the age of 2.5, I'm going to say my first words. And at 7, you're going to hear me speaking complete sentences for the first time. During that journey, there is going to be a lot of obstacles. But if you keep fighting for me and never giving up, I will have the opportunity to write 5, 6 Amazon best-selling books that have reached an Amazon bestseller for special need parenting, and I will have a job where I get to travel the globe and speak to schools, companies, and community events such as this one about the importance of embracing autism and neurodiversity. I will grow into an adult who embraces affection. Love, Kerry. I hope for anyone who is here today, coming from now a 37-year-old adult on the autism spectrum who now has a doctorate in education, that you never give up on your loved ones. The autism spectrum is wide and everyone's journey is going to be slightly different. Become an advocate and support this community, because we need to continue to advocate for reliable autism resources across the lifespan and across the spectrum for those in our community. So, I dealt with a wide range of challenges. As the video mentioned, I received over 15 years of occupational, physical, speech, music, and theater therapy to get me to where I am today, speaking in front of all of you. And now I've had this job for 14 years, traveling the globe, speaking at over 150 events each year across the globe and virtually to discuss this topic. Just some housekeeping notes. We're going to have about 45 minutes of presentation where we're going to provide you with 30 key resources that you can take advantage of. Just by a show of hands really quickly here today, how many parents of a child with autism do we have here today? How many educators do we have here today? Therapists? Self-advocates? Awesome, love to see that. Grandparents. You are all part of this amazing village. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in our country and is often one of the more underserved communities because, frankly, first and foremost, a lot of individuals in our minority communities can speak up for themselves, while autism at its core is a social and communication disorder that impacts many in our community. So we're going to share with everyone who is part of our Autism Village today over 30 key resources that you can utilize wherever you are during your journey with autism to help you along the way. Also, who likes free stuff? Show of hands, come on, get up if you like free stuff. So we will be providing you the PowerPoint slide notes from today's presentation, in addition to a list of free autism resources for you to take advantage of. After today's presentation, my wonderful, beautiful mother will be coming around with handouts. If you leave your name and email on these handouts, we'll make sure that you get the PowerPoint slide notes. I typically am the person taking a photo of every single slide, so we wanted to save you guys the trouble of having to do that today. And we'll have the last 15 minutes at the end for a question and answer period. So this quote is very profound, and I share it in most of my presentations because I think it's really, really important to discuss. A child with disabilities often spends hours being taught how to interact with others. But why don't we spend time teaching those without disabilities how to interact with them? I know this firsthand as somebody who was diagnosed with autism at 4 and spending years of therapy learning how to communicate, how to navigate, for example, social situations as well, and how to fit into a world that wasn't built with me in mind. But what if, instead of just focusing on making kids like me adapt, we also taught understanding, empathy, and inclusion, not only in our schools, but in our companies as well. True inclusion isn't about forcing autistic individuals to conform. It's about building a world that values differences. It's about teaching every child how to listen, how to embrace neurodiversity, and how to create spaces where we all belong. That's why today I travel across the country speaking with schools and community events like this and providing professional development for businesses on hiring talented neurodiverse individuals in the workplace. Because when we work together to foster acceptance, we create a future where everyone, regardless of ability, has the opportunity to thrive. So during my diagnosis, I was diagnosed in 1992 with a funky term that some people don't know in our community called pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. This was at a time in the United States that 1 in every 1,000 were being diagnosed with autism, and today autism has advanced so far and wide in our community, being one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities. Along As I told the NBC Today show when I was interviewed them, once you got me to start talking, you couldn't get me to stop talking once I turned 7 years old. But a wide range of my challenges were sensory integration challenges. And that's why music and theater therapy were so integral towards my development. There was always something annoying about loud noises, but there was always something soothing about music. So having those therapies in mind really helped along the way. I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey, so I was always in a big city where there was always a lot of hypersensitivity, especially when it came to sensory sensations. I was always definitely afraid of anything hypersensitive, whether it be bells, sirens. I also couldn't be bathed till 18 months old due to the feeling of water on my skin. A lot of that was really helped with a really great sensory integration therapist, and was really pivotal towards me overcoming a lot of my challenges. And today, I have had the wonderful opportunity to have a nonprofit organization where we provide scholarships in addition to peer mentoring for individuals with developmental disabilities from the ages of 16 to 24. Because one of the quotes we share a lot is we need to provide reliable autism resources across the lifespan, but we also have to realize that autistic children will become autistic adults, and we need to be ready for them. Because the popular image in our society is often around those cute kids that you see on TikTok. No, don't get me wrong, some of them are really adorable, who have autism, but what are we doing to highlight adults in our community? So I started a nonprofit organization once getting my master's completed at Seton Hall University so I could help the adult community with those with disabilities. And one of my mentees came up to me, and that was kind of how writing books started. He said he had never heard of a book written by somebody who had autism. So that poem that I read with all of you at the beginning, a letter I would have written for my parents when I was still nonverbal, was actually the inspiration for my first book, Defining Autism from the Heart. I assumed it would sell maybe 30 copies and be a great Christmas gift for my parents, but within 3 days it became an Amazon bestseller, and it continued to give us a platform to discuss topics that are impacting our autism community today, getting the opportunity to write 5 books since that first book came out. But growing up with autism, I had extreme laser-focused key interests. As I was telling many of the board members last night at dinner, I grew up wanting to be the 6th member of the Backstreet Boys. That was my key interest. I asked my mom for the white suit from the I Want It That Way video from the Millennium album, if anyone remembers that, very classy. And that was something that got my parents more involved with, getting me involved with music therapy. And today, I've had the opportunity to work as an autism entertainment consultant for television and film to bring a realistic portrayal of autism and disability to mainstream media. Get an opportunity to work on films like Joyful Noise, starring Queen Latifah and Dolly Parton, based on one of the characters in this film having autism. Later down the line, get an opportunity to work with some incredible groups, including HBO, and then also Netflix, 5-time Emmy Award-winning series Love on the Spectrum US, where we give the opportunity for individuals from a wide range of life to be able to go on some of their first dates ever. And for anyone who hasn't seen the show, I wanted to show a quick clip from one of our most recent seasons so you could get a little sense of what we're trying to do today to support the autism community.
What do you think love is?
Love is a dagger, a pretty thing that enchants, but also hurts.
And I know it's a little low, so what I'm going to explain is Connor,
Welcome
who
back.
you just saw, is an
Yes,
incredible
I am
autistic
back.
individual.
What do you think? Should we
This
get
is
started?
James. That is Abby, who is truly
Oh, Keon,
amazing.
yeah.
If
How's
you
this
have the
smile?
opportunity to follow
That's pretty
Abby
good.
and David
Why do you wanna
on
find
social
love?
media, they
I
are
have
truly,
so
truly
much love to
phenomenal
give.
as well.
When there's love, there's-
But in the spirit of time, and just because the video is sounding a little low, and I want to be mindful of time, that opportunity was truly, truly amazing. The first 2 seasons actually premiered in Australia, and we were talking to the director named Cian O'Cleary, who had done these 2 great Australian seasons, but with the impact of autism being 1 in 34 in the United States, one of the most common questions I get from my mentees is not about job interviews, it's not about resume building, it's about the cute boy and the cute girl and how we could go about getting into a relationship. So I started talking to the director and I told him that there's a true need to highlight autism in relationships in the US. And a few years later, we were able to get the first season done, then a second season. We just finished wrapping up season 3, and now we are hopefully going to be renewed for season 4 in April for Autism Acceptance Month. During that time, we've also worked with the entertainment world to bring more early intervention services in our mainstream media around autism. One in particular we're really excited about, PBS Kids, which I had the opportunity to write an episode for, just created a show called Carl the Collector, which if any of you have young children, is actually one of the first autistic main characters to ever come out on PBS Kids. And I want to share a quick trailer of some of the work we're doing to highlight autism for our little ones today.
I want to help. You do? It's okay, buddy. I'm here for you anytime.
If those bouncy balls are important to you, then they're important to me too.
Playing with you all and telling you about my worries made me feel way better. No problem, Carl. Glad I could help you, buddy.
We're here for you.
We're here
Do it.
Way to go, Carl. You did it, Carl. You are very brave, Sheldon. Thank you, Carl.
We made you this friendship bracelet.
This is for me?
Yes.
You can keep it. Really? I think that'll make me feel happy every time I see it.
So one of the things that we often realize in the community is that some autistic people really thrive when it comes to routine. So when we were coming up with ideas for a show, one of the things we thought about was how cool would it be to have an autistic individual who can really help embrace the community, especially around the idea of routine and structure, because that is something that helps so many kids in our autism community today. We were so thrilled for the first season, and we're hoping for a season 2 renewal at some point this summer. So stay tuned for that. But during the way, we also realized that many celebrities and government officials were also highlighting the fact that they had people in their family who had an autism diagnosis. A lot of people don't know this, but Robert De Niro actually has a son who's on the autism spectrum. So we got the opportunity to work on a film called Ezra, which came out last year, which focuses on the relationship between a dad and his child who is on the autism spectrum. We have some amazing, strong mama autism bears in our autism community today. But one of the things that we really want to see representation for in our mainstream media are those dads who are doing some incredible work to help their autistic children. So we got the opportunity to have that movie come out just last year with Robert De Niro, Bobby Carnival, and so many incredible actors, where we also got to hire an autistic actor to play the autistic character as well. In addition to that, we also had a film come out last year called Ezra, starring Greg Kinnear from Little Miss Sunshine and Isla Fisher from the movie Wedding Crashers, where for the first time in mainstream media and film, we got the opportunity to highlight a non-speaking autistic individual. Some of the statistics indicate that up to 40% of autistic children are either non-speaking or nonverbal today in the United States. So we got the opportunity to highlight an augmentative alternative communication user who himself was also on the autism spectrum in this film. I mentioned earlier that one of the saving graces of my life and something that brings me so much passion and joy in my life has been my nonprofit work. Getting the opportunity to give back to individuals in our community has been one of the true blessings that I've had in my life. Since we started our nonprofit, KFM Making a Difference, we provide 162 scholarships for autistic students to pursue a post-secondary education. We've also given out small business grants for small businesses that want to hire people with disabilities. We see it in our mainstream media, but it is going to be a challenge for some individuals in our neurodiverse world to go about finding meaningful employment over the next few years. We also indicate that those with disabilities are twice as likely to be unemployed compared to their non-disabled peers. But what a lot of companies don't realize is that those with disabilities are more likely to stay at a job longer, they're more likely to take less time off from work, And when I go give a professional development for a company, some of them are like, well, Kerry, I don't know if I could hire someone with a disability because I have to think about the bottom line. We're still trying to get through COVID. And what a lot of these companies don't realize is that the majority of reasonable accommodations for those with disabilities cost absolutely nothing. And when they do, it's just an onboarding fee of $500. So I go into companies and I encourage them to say this: it's not what a company can do for somebody with a disability. It's what somebody with a disability can do for that company, and changing those conversations. So in the meantime, we've started that small business grant where we've given out 25 small business grants, in addition to also helping special education teachers, aides, and therapists. We actually just started a grant program where we're now providing services for them so they can provide more sensory tools, augmentative alternative communication devices in their classrooms to help those with special needs as well. We also got the opportunity to write a book called Autistics on Autism. We'll have a book signing and meet and greet right outside these doors after the Q&A today, where you can check a little bit more about the books that we've written. But this one is very special to me because we took 100 of our scholarship applicants, 100 autistic adults, and we asked them to share a little bit about what helped them during their journey growing up with autism, to provide an educational resource from a first-person perspective of people in our autism community, where 100% of the proceeds from that book have actually gone back to support initiatives like our scholarship funds. So getting the opportunity to travel the globe has been truly, truly amazing. I never knew that public speaking was a career that I could ever consider. I grew up wanting to become the next Kobe Bryant. I literally, you can't see it right now, but I'm wearing Laker Jordans currently right now on my feet. But I literally, growing up, I could tell you all 30 NBA teams and every single player on one of those teams because it was my key interest. And I actually went for an undergraduate degree in sport management in the hopes of doing something in sports. I have like an 8-inch vertical leap. It's the most embarrassing thing ever. I'm 6'3". I can't even like touch the rim of a basketball hoop. It's very embarrassing. But getting the opportunity to work in that profession was really, really amazing for those 4 years. Getting the opportunity to work with CBS Sports, ESPN Radio, before deciding to change career paths to support the disability community and go into public speaking, which I've been doing for the past 14 years now. We also get the opportunity to work with our first responders, because it is so imperative, especially in 2025, that we make sure that people realize that autism is not just the good doctor on ABC. There are people with high support needs who need our support. Unfortunately today, statistics indicate that autistic children in the United States, about 49% of them wander from a safe environment and go missing as a result. So we're talking about high support need individuals. And we need to have larger conversations with our first responders and our communities to make sure that when these kids go missing, we are there with supports to make sure that they are found as fast as possible. Looking at water as one of the first areas, because many autistic people are prone to going to water when they wander away from their families. So we get the opportunity to work with many different first responders to provide resources and education about the importance of supporting that community. But we also have to realize this: not all disabilities have a look. You would be surprised. I spoke at S&P Global 2 years ago for their Autism Acceptance Month event. And somebody came up to me afterwards and they were like, you know, Kerry, it's really cool that you're able to speak to all of us today, but you don't look like you have autism. And I'm like, well, I parted my hair the other way today so you couldn't see the autism. It was the coolest thing ever, guys. I'm telling you. I'm a smartass by nature. I should have prefaced it at the beginning of this presentation. But we need to normalize the fact that disability has no look. And many of our kids in our schools may have an invisible disability where they may be not receiving services simply because of the fact that they don't look like they have a disability. Not only the autism community, but ADHD, selective mutism, the list goes on. And we need to make sure we recognize that so we can provide care and resources for those individuals. For the parents in the room, I often get asked by parents, what is one piece of advice that you would give me for my autism journey? And this video that I got the opportunity to do really emphasizes the fact that you have to realize one key thing, especially after that diagnosis. Your child is the same child as they were before the diagnosis. Remember, your child is the same child as they were before the diagnosis. They just may now be eligible for more supports to help them thrive. Growing up with autism, my parents realized that my diagnosis didn't change who I was. It was a tool that provided access to essential services and supports that are helping me even to this day. It was through this understanding and a lot of support, I was able to overcome many of my challenges to become the professional speaker I am today, speaking with all of you. This understanding opens up opportunities for our children to grow. Embrace this path with compassion and optimism, focusing on your child's abilities while continuing to work on their weaknesses. So we realize that early intervention is the key. Those first 5 years are pivotal because of brain development for these individuals. However, we also have to make sure, and I know so many parents who I consult with who feel like deer in headlights the first time that their child is diagnosed. But you have to remember that your child is the same child, and hopefully we will be able to provide them resources along the way. That's the best thing that you could do for your child. So as Trish mentioned, one of the cool things that we get the opportunity to highlight the fact that if you met one disabled person, you met just that one disabled person. It's every single place we go to speak, we bring a tripod and camera, you can see in the front of this room today, and we highlight self-advocates to give them a platform to share their stories. On our Facebook page, Kerry's Autism Journey, which now has 310,000 Facebook followers, where we're able to give a national platform for individuals to tell us what you're capable of and what you're passionate about. So one of the first kids we ever got to interview out of the 150 kids from across the globe we got to highlight was this incredible young boy named Liam, who had a very unique story of growing up with autism that he wanted a platform to share with the world.
So we're going to be talking to the camera, and we want to make you famous. So we literally want to make you probably the most famous person on the planet. How's that sound?
Okay.
No pressure.
Autism basically makes it hard to connect. It makes it hard to get that connection, to make friends. They feel like more loners than, well, in groups. It's also a learning disability, and in some cases, it's hard. You can't speak in some cases. I met a kid called Tom, who he has autism, but he can't speak in proper English. He needs an iPad.
So Liam, one thing I want you to know is that I was actually diagnosed with autism at an early age too. And I don't know if I've ever actually told you that, but I want you to know that I will always be here to be your friend if you need a friend, okay?
Yeah.
Because even though it may be hard at times to connect to other people, you know, I feel like so many people with autism like us just want like what anyone else wants, you know, to feel connected and to have a friend. So you always got a friend in me, okay? You want to pound this up?
Yeah.
Do you blow it up too? Oh, he blows it up. You're awesome, Liam.
I'm kind of tearing up. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's kind of a
So this was Liam's first ever opportunity to tell anyone outside of his immediate family about his autism diagnosis. And his video went viral on our Facebook page with so many people giving him love and support in the comments. And what we realized is that this could be a great way of helping individuals from a wide range of disabilities nurture their self-advocacy. If I leave you guys with anything today, it's the importance of realizing that our kids, we need to meet them where they are, but we also have to remember the importance of self-advocacy skills along the way. Liam is now 17 years old. He's about to pursue post-secondary, and is really, really thriving today. And one of the things that we were really able to provide for this entire community are for many individuals who are a little overwhelmed and skeptical about sharing with anyone about their diagnosis, helping them feel empowered by their diagnosis. We have this whole realm in the autism community called neurodiversity. It's often a very interesting word that some people understand, some people don't. But neurodiversity at its core is, I've always considered myself an autistic individual because I know that without my autism, I would not be who I am today. Now, there's some individuals in our community who have high support needs and will have 24/7 struggles. But the importance of some of these individuals being able to self-advocate for themselves is really, really important to say. During that time, we don't only see the Carls and the collectors of the world, but we also see a wide range of other groups wanting to highlight and have earlier conversations about autism, specifically in the girl community. We need to do a better job of embracing girls on the autism spectrum. Today in our community, boys are diagnosed 4 times more often than girls because we still have this stigma of Rain Man and Good Doctor being the formal diagnoses of everybody who has autism. That every single, for example, like growing up, everyone just assumed I'd be great at math, that I have a photogenic memory, and when I turned 21, I would take shots with Tom Cruise in Las Vegas and win him $88,000 on the blackjack tables counting cards. We now realize today that autism is a spectrum, and we need to make sure that we are highlighting more girls. So we had the opportunity to collaborate with Sesame Street a few Autism Awareness Months ago about a very special Muppet that some of you may have seen in our community.
I am Alan.
Oh, and Elmo's Elmo. And
this is Julia.
Julia.
That's right. And Julia and her family moved to Sesame Street about a year ago.
Yeah.
And Julia has autism, and she likes people to know that. Here's a letter from Kerry with a K.
Hello, Kerry with a K.
All right. And Kerry is an adult with autism, and he has a blog. So he writes, "Hello, my name is Kerry. I am an adult with autism, and I write about my experiences on my blog. Being unable to speak doesn't mean you can't always communicate. How does Julia communicate? That's a really, really good question.
Yeah.
So sometimes Julia communicates with pictures using a talker, which is a communication device. So Julia doesn't always have the words to explain how she's feeling, so she can tell me how she's feeling by pointing to the different feeling faces. So for instance, if she points to a sad face, it means she's feeling down, or she points to a happy face, that means she's feeling excited.
Yeah. There's lots of different ways to communicate.
That is absolutely right.
Yes.
And Kerry has another question. How can people help someone with autism?
Well, Elmo thinks that it's important to include everybody during playtime.
Oh, yeah, that's great advice, Elmo. You know, sometimes Julia wants to play but doesn't know how to ask. So everyone feels better when they're being included. So it helps to tell Julia what she can do to join in and have fun and give her what she needs.
Yeah. Oh, like when Elmo is playing with his toy cars and sees Julia, Elmo invites Julia over and gives her a few cars to play with too.
That is great, Elmo.
Yeah.
Love cars. Love cars.
So Julia was the first ever Muppet to come to Sesame Street who had an autism diagnosis. And the reason why they chose a girl was the importance of the fact that some girls in our autism community are more likely to mask different characteristics. For example, they may try to be quote unquote neurotypical by, for example, when people stim, which every single one of you in this room, if you've ever heard the word stimming, every single one of you in this room stim. And a lot of the times it's just autistic people like characterized as stimming. I've been rubbing my hands together during this entire presentation. That's a stim. Anytime you've leaned back or moved forward in your chair, that's also a stim. And one of the things that this show really wants to highlight is the fact that some girls in our community mask better than boys, and the importance of making sure that girls don't fall through the cracks in our autism community. So what were some of the things that helped me from non-speaking to professional speaker? One of the things was ruling out as many associated medical and mental health conditions as humanly possible. We have a huge community on social media, from TikTok and Instagram, of people with dual diagnoses of ADHD and autism in our community today. If you see a sign, any sign at all, speak up. Your voice has power to make effective change in your child or your student's life. I found out about my dual diagnosis, which was this thing called dysgraphia, which is a handwriting disorder, when I was 18. It was even though I had fine motor challenges for most of my adolescence, my parents realized later on some of the signs and they took action. If you see something, speak up, because we have a wide range of diagnoses, including but not limited to things like ecophilia, epilepsy, ADHD, Down syndrome. The list goes on and on. If you see signs, speak up. What my parents also did early on was realize the importance of utilizing technology as a way of finding meaningful resources. Again, artificial intelligence, we're still a few years away from really getting to the point where we could provide early detection and early intervention and resources, but resources in our community were very, very limited. Luckily, I had a father who worked in information technology, and we were able to utilize technology from a very early age, and that was really pivotal towards my adolescence. On my Facebook page, in addition to sharing the videos of people like Liam, I also get the opportunity to share meaningful, important reminders for people in our autism community, such as this one. My aggressive behaviors growing up, hitting others as an autistic child, were almost always because of hypersensitivity and me trying to communicate and dealing with frustration. It's important for parents to remember your child doesn't hate you. They need your love and support. So a lot of people also come up to me today and they say, Kerry, how were you able to cure yourself of your autism diagnosis? And they don't see the struggles that I had to go through growing up to get me to the point where I am today. One of the things that we also need to do a better job of discussing in our school systems is social skills. And that's a big reason why we also discuss the idea of self-advocacy. What I've realized is that while working with so many kids, when they actually come out about their autism diagnosis, it's life-changing because they get to learn a little bit more about themselves, but also their peers get to learn a little bit about them as well. Any specific quirks they have, they become full circle by being able to share their diagnosis. Social skills are a great way of helping empower self-advocacy, so often I talk about them hand in hand. They are often also overlooked in our K through 12 school systems. We need to make sure that we're having larger conversations with our speech therapists, our special education teachers, about the importance of measurable and observable goals for individuals in our autism community, not only the social skills, but also other areas that may be impacting our autistic loved ones. We also need to do a better job of making sure that we have our kids able to enter the world around them, because often, like I said in the quote at the beginning, the world is often focused on neurotypical individuals and not towards those in our disability community. Finding ways of encouraging our companies to understand that it's not only goodwill, it's the right thing to do. Hosting sensory-friendly events. For example, Walmart came out with sensory-friendly shopping on the Sunday of every week from 8 to 10 a.m., where they turn the lights down, they turn external noise down, and it's specifically for shoppers who have a neurodiverse condition. We need to encourage more individuals in our community to go about highlighting the fact that we need to get our kids out and engaged with the world. The most heartbreaking thing is when I work with a kid who spends 8 hours a day playing video games because he simply can't go out in the world due to his sensory challenges. We also need to do a better job of just highlighting the fact that non-speaking individuals, just because somebody can't speak, doesn't mean they can't communicate. Guys, I can't stress this enough. We need for people to realize that some individuals who are non-speaking are highly intelligent. We need to just meet them where they are in the ways that they communicate. We need to have larger conversations in our schools, for example, about picture exchange communication systems. Giving even peers the opportunity to, for example, have a PEX board in a recess area where there are now educational grants providing these in local areas to help non-speaking students be able to communicate with their verbal peers and have those connections and friendships along the way as well. So finally, before we wrap it up, 10 things that truly helped me during this journey from non-speaking to professional speaker. I can't stress enough the importance of self-advocacy. I learned about my autism diagnosis. I was 11 and a half years old. We were playing disability celebrity bingo in our social skills class, where we were learning that like individuals like Michael Jordan has ADHD, which was awesome for me because Michael Jordan was the GOAT and I just loved him so much. Then Magic Johnson also had ADHD. The list went on and on. But at the end of the class, the teacher says to all of us, the most talented and successful people in our society are special, just like you. So I raised my hand and I was like, so teacher, why am I special? And she said, I need to talk to my parents about that. I get it. It was a loaded question. But I sat my parents down right after school that day and I asked them why I was special. And they told me I had autism. And not at that point, but everything became full circle and I understood so much more about who I was. And I was able to sit in on my IEP meetings, individualized education plan meetings, and being able to self-advocate for myself and understand about my accommodations. And everything became so much easier for me during my autism journey by being able to self-advocate. Role-playing as well is truly pivotal. We need to make sure that we understand our kids' love routines, but from a social skills perspective, doing mock interviews, being able to do friendship exercises where you just type in YouTube social skills for autistic young ones. There are so many resources out there where you can find a loved one and actually play out social skills and teach kids about communication in that way. Servant leadership, I think all of us in our society just need to realize the importance of giving back. We've seen so many natural disasters, but so many individuals really, really struggling in our community. And giving the opportunity for me, I had mind blindness growing up on the autism spectrum. I never was able to understand the perspectives of others. And getting involved with community service made me realize that I wasn't the only one going through hardships in my life and that there were other individuals that were going through the same. Just getting your kid involved with 10 hours of community service each and every year can really make them not only an amazing servant leader in their local community, but understand the perspectives of others and become more inclusive and accepting. Learning from other self-advocates and peer mentoring kind of go hand in hand, but we need all of our schools to have a strong peer mentoring program, especially for our special education students. I was in Las Vegas a year before COVID-19 speaking to 300 special education teachers on universal design for learning. And I asked them, how many of you have a strong peer mentoring program in your schools? And only 3 out of the 300 teachers raised their hands. And I found that so unfortunate because peer mentoring doesn't affect the bottom line. And it's also been proven to help with things like social skills, also helping with things like bullying. Having a peer who's just a little bit older than that individual be able to provide them with what an outlook might look like for them in the future also helps build on self-motivation. You know, it's like when I learned that, like, for example, Dan Aykroyd had autism. That was a self-motivator for me. Because he grew up with 2 extreme key interests, but his 2 extreme key interests were growing up to become a crime detective, which is awesome, and then also becoming a ghost hunter. And then he came out with a movie in the 1980s called Ghostbusters with Bill Murray that he co-wrote, and later on said that was because of his autism diagnosis he was able to come up with that script. While we continue the conversations, we need to have larger conversations around mental health associated with our loved ones' autism diagnoses. That is why I often recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not going to be for every single individual because it is a spectrum, but giving individuals the opportunity to have positive reinforcers in their lives, especially when they might be going through hardships, especially with their own diagnoses. Self-reflection, I think every autistic student should have some form of journal therapy. Journal therapy at its core helps students build on self-awareness that helps them understand not only who they are, but also what their autism means to them via things like reasonable accommodations, and also helps them advocate in their IEP meetings if they need specific accommodations. Physical activity, we understand that 30 minutes of walking has significant benefits on short-term and long-term retention, which also can help individuals with challenging behaviors. If anyone has an autistic teen right now, you know what I'm talking about. Being able to provide help in that area. Finding support networks, obviously you have a tight-knit village right here with the Lower Shore autism community. Make sure to utilize them because it does take a village. And then finally, writing your story, because honestly, guys, the importance of speaking up has never been more pivotal, especially in one of the more uncertain times that we have in our country, especially in the past few decades. So I like to finish most of my presentations by saying this. You know, guys, regardless if you have autism or not in this room or any challenge that you have in this world, realize that no one thing in your life has to define who you are. I like to say that autism can't define me, and I define autism. And I can only hope that every single one of you in this room, regardless of whatever journey you're currently going on, can go out there, define your lives and your journeys, in the way that you best see it every single day. And if you need any help getting started in those conversations, these are the ways that you can stay in contact with me after today's presentation. Thank you all so much for having me here today. All right, guys, and now here's my favorite part of the presentation, question and answer, where I get to run around and get to show you guys my Laker Nikes. And thank you. So any thoughts, questions, we'd love it. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I was speaking with a bunch of first graders, and the first three questions they said after I said there's no such thing as a dumb question, the first question they asked me was, have you ever met Taylor Swift? I haven't. I met Kate Hessa, which is pretty cool. Have you ever met Katy Perry? And the third one was, has anyone ever told you you kind of look a little like George Clooney? My mom will attest to this. My dad literally looks like George Clooney a little bit. And I'm like, how does a 6-year-old know who George Clooney is? I mean, like, what was the last porn movie he was in? Anyways, yes, yeah.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's very inspiring. I had an opportunity to interview a young man named Mickey Rowe, who is fantastic, big social media presence, doing in his own way what you're doing for the autism community. He talked about something interesting about the perception that working with people who are on the spectrum or neurodivergent professionally, that they wouldn't be great people to work with, like in the workplace, to work with professionally. And I thought, what he said, I asked him about that in the interview, and he said, well, actually, I think, and you talked about it today, this idea of not talking and listening more. Right. And that actually working with people on the spectrum, that they have this ability, because they were listening more than talking, to observe things in the workplace that traditional people in the workplace. So do you have something to say about that? And like, is that shifting, that more people on the spectrum are going into the workplace, and that people are more open to the different ways that people on the spectrum work?
It's a great question. It's a loaded question though, depending on where you are. It is very much a spectrum because there are some companies that do some great work, especially their employee resource groups, on actually bringing in speakers to discuss neurodiversity in the workplace. But while we see that, there's some groups that are really targeting especially education around minorities, especially those in the disability community. I don't think I need to tell you, just based on our current society today. But I think we need to have larger conversations in our workplaces about that principle that I said. It's not about what a company can do for somebody with a disability, it's what somebody with a disability can do for that company. I believe every company should forgo the interview process, for example, for a one-day work trial, where we can actually show what these kids are capable of. And being able to listen, I mean, we're seeing more companies wanting to have these conversations simply because of the prevalence. And they are realizing that their kids are getting older, they're getting diagnosed, and they want, we've all thought about this question, what will happen to my child when I'm gone? And we want to help them find meaningful employment and opportunities. So I think it's just a natural evolution that we're having these conversations because of the fact of the prevalence, but we're also realizing our kids are becoming adults before our eyes. Yes?
I can ask you to talk a little bit about, you talked about your dysgraphia.
Yeah.
I have a son who's in high school, and I have said since he was in elementary school that I felt like there was something physically that hampered, that inhibited his writing skills. He's highly intelligent, he understands material, he can regurgitate material to you verbally, but to write, the physical act of writing, there's something that bothers him. And when you said that, I looked that up and I said, well, how was that diagnosed for you, and what kind of supports might be available to somebody that's not, that has that diagnosis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question revolved around the idea of dysgraphia, and dysgraphia being a handwriting disorder, what tools and resources might be available for those in the dysgraphia community. So I was diagnosed by an occupational therapist who helped me throughout my life. realized my handwriting was awful, and then actually said, have you ever thought about getting diagnosed? Actually found a specialist, and that led to that diagnosis when I was 18. I think the emphasis on technology is really, really important to help those in the dysgraphia community, especially being able to have speech-to-text softwares, being able, what I realized with a lot of people with dysgraphia is that they are brilliant speakers a lot of the time, but it doesn't necessarily translate when they're actually writing it down on paper. So being able to, for example, that's an accommodation that some schools provide, being able to have those speech-to-text softwares where these kids get the opportunity to say what's in their head versus write it down. So I think that's one of the big things, especially when we come to technology. There are also other things like, with some people with dysgraphia, it's the way they write, but for others with dysgraphia, it's hard for them to process what they're thinking in their head to write it down on paper. So there are different handwriting tools that are available in our community. If you go to websites like funandfunction.com, they have some great dysgraphia tools as well. Any thoughts, questions? Yes.
So I'm autistic, and so is my husband. And my question is, have you met any other like autistic kids or adults that are like married and like stuff like that? And we also have a baby. So I just want to know if we've ever met people like that.
That's a great question. So the question was, have I ever met any autistic people who are married and also have a kid? Yes. So one of the individuals I interviewed in my video series, his name is Sam, actually has, I believe is an autistic 4-year-old now. So it is possible. I hope to be in that same realm soon. Moving in with my girlfriend this year, so I'm really hopeful and optimistic for the future. She's a beautiful soul, and I love her with all my heart. So I definitely hope that's something that I get the opportunity to do myself one day. But it does happen, and there are many examples in the community. Maybe not as popular as the Temple Grandins of the world, but there are individuals. I see the cases every single day. Yes?
My question is, have you ever seen any short-term memory issues associated with autism or collected information that kind of have that dual diagnosis with short-term memory issues?
I mean, I can't remember what I have for breakfast most days. No, I'm kidding. So the question was around short-term memory and associations with autism. I see a lot of diagnoses that coincide with that, simply because of the fact that a lot of our kids have those extreme key interests. And lots of associations, especially in the ADHD and autism communities, with short-term attention, which coincides with the fact that some individuals, it's that they're listening, it's just not necessarily something they want to hear about. So it's not necessarily short-term. So it is a very, very wide spectrum. Kind of, it's a political answer to that, for at least right now. Yes.
You said that you first became aware of your diagnosis when you were 11.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, did you feel, looking back, did you feel like that was a good time in your life to find out? And why or why not?
Oh, that's a great question. So the question was, I found out about my diagnosis at 11. Was that a good time to find out why or why not? I think it was a great time just from so I have this debate with parents because some parents don't want to tell their child that they're on the autism spectrum until they're older because they don't want them to see their disability as a crutch. And I often say that we talk about early intervention being those first 5 years. I think kids should learn about their diagnosis as soon as they start preschool. Just in a very novice way, my mom told me that, Kerry, you have autism, but that doesn't make you any less of a person. And then as I got older, I started asking more questions. But at the time, just having that understanding, turning into a positive way versus like it's something that hinders me, was really, really helpful towards my development. Being 11, I asked more questions right away because I was a little bit more mature than I would have been if I was like 4 or 5 years old. But I often recommend it just so these kids can start seeing it on their IEP meetings for 15, 30 minutes at a time to understand a little bit more about their accommodations. A lot of these kids know that they're special. They just don't know what that means. We have another question over here, yes?
Yes. So I'm a parent of my daughter is on the spectrum.
How's she doing today?
Oh, fantastic. We had our struggles. Thank you for everything. You're incredible, by the way. This is just so
Thank you so much.
You were talking about the peer mentoring program, and we don't have something like that exists. My daughter goes to school in Worcester County, so like I'm like your ideal lady. All these people always say that, and I'm like a huge advocate as well. So I really would like to maybe see something like this starting. So could you speak like a little bit more on that, and if you know the program that maybe already exists? If I could have like a contact,
Yeah.
so I'm not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so there is an organization, a national organization called the National Mentoring Resource Center.org, and they have a blueprint of how to start a peer mentoring program in K through 12. It's a really great understanding of helping individuals understand. We're not, especially in the earlier ages, we're not like literally telling a 6-year-old like to have all these goals and measurable goals with a 5-year-old. We're simply just telling a 6-year-old to read a book with a 5-year-old and build on those social skills and that ability to look up to someone for the first time. While also providing the mentors with leadership opportunities from a very early age can help propel them as they get older as well. So National Mentoring Resource Center provides a blueprint of what that looks like so you can establish it in your school systems. And just as a note, we left forms on every single one of your tables. If you leave your name and email, and if you have any follow-up questions that we didn't get to during today's presentation, I will be providing the PowerPoint slide notes. In that email I'll send out, though, you will get my direct email, so if there are any questions that come up, feel free to stay in touch. But you'll also get the PowerPoint slide notes if you fill out that form. And we have extras over here, too, as well. Any other thoughts, final questions? Yes?
I have a question. So I have a 5-year-old son who was diagnosed with ADHD, and there was suspicion that he was on the spectrum. But I feel like one of the battles I'm coming up against is they blame everything on the ADHD. And they're not really willing to look into seeing if he's on the spectrum. Is this a common occurrence you're seeing if they have the full diagnosis? If they try and blame it fully on one?
Often I see just an emphasis on one, and it goes back to the parent to actually go about the process of either getting a second opinion or just simply telling the doctor, like, I've seen my child do this, this, and this. Especially in terms of attention seeking, where it can be very much in that ADHD realm more than the autism realm, because autism is focused more on that social communication aspect. So it's really just about asking those questions, and when you see those signs and your main pediatrician is not seeing that, being able to find a second opinion in your insurance network. So, yes.
I operate a very good writing program, and a comment something I just came up with because it happened. We always, with peer mentoring, we always put kids that are like on horses at the same time, and within 3 or 4 weeks, they're best friends. So, one of my thoughts is that parents are just looking for a friend for their kid, and it naturally happens. If you put 2 kids on 2 separate ones, there's a chaos, right? But it isn't. The movement of the forest, and we're up in the forest, and you talked about having a nice calm place.
Right.
The environment matters a lot. So we provide that friendship for autistic children to come.
And what's the name of your group?
4 Steps Therapeutic Writing Program. And if anybody needs a newsletter, I have it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I 1000% agree. Temple Grant is a great example. She's also a dear friend who's helped me find my career in public speaking over time. And she's always said that she interacts better with animals than she does with people. And I feel the same way when I'm with my cat sometimes too. So I understand 100%. Equine therapy is an amazing therapy if you have, often Often it's not covered by insurance. However, if you know of a group like her amazing group, I would definitely recommend it for your child, especially if they have an inkling to animals as well. We have a question over here. Yes.
I just want to say that Sandy Winter will be our guest presenter at our family support board meeting this month. So if you'd like to find more information about that and about us, you'll be join us February 11th from 6 to 8 for regular we have the flyers here.
Awesome. So they'll be having an event on February 11th, and you can check out their table with all the flyers and information for that. Just a last housekeeping note, we will be outside doing a short book signing. If you filled out that form with your name and email, you could bring it outside, and we'll make sure that you get the PowerPoint slides. Thank you all so much for having me here today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Magro. You've certainly given us a lot to consider. Again, a couple of things before we go. We couldn't do this without many of our sponsors, especially our diamond level sponsors, the Salisbury Elks, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, Somerset County Commissioners, thank you, the Crisfield American Legion, and of course our hosts, UMES. As was suggested by Mary Ann, our secretary, we are having our next family support group meeting on February 11th. We also have that teen, young adult social group meeting at the same time. So we certainly invite you to do that, and there's information in your bags that you received this morning. One additional thing, if you do take a look at the program that is in front of you on your table, we have some things to share. Make sure I do this right. If you have a sticker on the back of your program with the letter B, you will receive one of Dr. Magro's books on your way out. Okay? If you have the letter C on the back of your program, you are welcome to take the centerpiece that's at your table. And again, we thank you so much for coming. Sorry? Yes. See Trish for your book if you had letter B. And again, Dr. Magro will be out front signing books. Thank you so much for coming.